Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Biggs from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. I am so pleased that you would join us. And joining me today is Mike Davis. Mike is the founder and president of the Article 3 Project, a new 501c4 nonprofit group established to fight to confirm President Trump's judicial nominees, defend these new judges from left-wing attacks, defend the integrity of the confirmation process, and fight back against the assault on judicial independence, including radical court packing, term limit, and even impeachment schemes. We may go there, Mike. We may talk about that, no doubt.
Right.
Mike's previously served as chief counsel for nominations to Chairman Chuck Grassley on the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary during the 115th Congress. Mike led a team of attorneys, law clerks, and other professionals that advised Chairman Grassley and other senators on presidential nominations and Senate confirmations of federal judges, senior Justice Department officials, and other senior executive branch appointees. He served as the chairman's staff lead for 30 hearings, 41 markup meetings, or floor votes for 278 nominees, including the confirmations of Justice Brett Kavanaugh and a record number of circuit judges confirmed during a president's first year and a president's first 2 years in office. Davis also serves as the chairman's staff lead for the hearings for 50 judicial nominees, including 6 circuit nominees, readied for confirmation votes in 2019. Before joining Chairman Grassley's team on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Mike, a former law clerk to Justice Neil Gorsuch, served as the general of Justice Gorsuch's outside support team for successful confirmation to the Supreme Court of the United States in 2017. Wow, Mike, we could spend days going over Gorsuch. We could spend days going over the Kavanaugh hearings in and of themselves, other hearings that you've worked on and been witness to. But before we get into that, let's talk briefly about why courts, and particularly the U.S. Supreme Court, has become so important and so contentious over nominations when just probably 80 years ago, we didn't see this kind of contention.
Well, I think the reason that the Supreme Court has become so contentious is because Democrats use judges to try to backdoor in their policy agenda because they know that the American people aren't going to go along with their radical ideas. And so they install these judges who do their bidding for them as liberal judicial activists on the court. And the Democrats see the Supreme Court as the ultimate political arena for their radical policies. And so that's why they put up such a fight. These weren't issues back 80 years ago or 90 years ago because judges understood their modest but critical role was to follow the law instead of do policy pronouncements from the bench.
Well said. I agree with that 100%. I'm dismayed many times when I read an opinion and feel like there's legislating going on instead of adjudicating. So that's great. And one other thing you've written recently is about President Trump, and all elections coming up aside, he is going to have an incredible legacy just from the judiciary because of what you just described. Tell us about what that legacy might look like as a president.
Sure. President Trump has, in 2016, then candidate Donald Trump campaigned on the promise that he would appoint justices and judges in the mold of the late, great Justice Scalia and transform the federal judiciary with constitutionalist, originalist, and textualist judges. And I run the Article 3 Project, which is a pro-Trump judge group. And if you go look at a feature on our website is article3project.org, article3project.org. We have a feature on there called judiciarytracker.com, judiciarytracker.com. It shows where the federal court stood the day that President Trump took office, and it shows where they stand now. And President Trump has absolutely delivered on his promise to American voters to transform the federal judiciary. He solidified a Republican-appointed majority on the Supreme Court with the appointments of Justice Neil Gorsuch, my former boss, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh. He has appointed a near all-time record 53 federal appellate judges to the critically important federal courts of appeals around the country. The federal government divides up its appeals among 13 U.S. courts of appeals. 12 of them are regional and 1 is specialty. when President Trump took office, there was a lot of liberal judges on these critically important federal courts of appeals where 99% of federal appeals end. And President Trump has flipped the second, third, and 11th circuits from majority Democrat appointed to majority Republican appointed. And what that means is it is much more likely that you're going to get judges who follow the law instead of rewriting the law on these critically important federal courts of appeals. On the Ninth Circuit, the 29-seat liberal out of whack Ninth Circuit, or Ninth Circus, as some people call it, when President Trump took office, there were 11 more Democrat appointed judges than Republicans. That is down to just 3. In President Trump's second term, he could do the unthinkable for a president for a Republican president before President Trump, and that is flip the Ninth Circuit along with all remaining of the 13 federal circuits around the country to conservative control. And look at what he's about to do on the Supreme Court with the nomination and inevitable appointment of Justice Amy Coney Barrett before the end of October. We are going to have a true conservative majority on the Supreme Court for the first time in 90 years, and we're going to transform the Supreme Court from the 5-4 John Roberts court to the 6-3 Clarence Thomas court. This is huge, huge stuff. The federal judiciary is the last line of defense that protects Americans from government overreach and mob rule, and it is critically important that we have judges who understand that is their job.
That is quite a remarkable statement of the rebuilding of the judiciary that we've seen. I live in the Ninth Circuit, and there was nothing funny about that Ninth Circus, as we called it, and you never knew what you were going to get. And I won't devolve too much into that, but I mean, look, they couldn't even do a traditional en banc hearing in the Ninth Circuit because you could end up with everybody from California instead of a representative of the entire district. And it's a district that's so huge, it goes from the equator to the Arctic Circle. And it's nuts. So to see what he's done there and have a chance really to move it back to textualist or originalist scholars and judges that really adhere to the premise of the Constitution is the rule of law. That's remarkable. So let's talk about, before we segue into discussion about Amy Coney Barrett and her unique qualifications, and I think both you and I agree with that, but you sat through and worked on the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearing, and that, quite frankly, I remember the Bork hearing, I remember the Clarence Thomas hearing. That took that kind of vitriol to a new low, and what happened there, some of the things that you saw there. Tell me what you then will expect in the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation process.
I will expect a lot of what they did, what the Democrats and their outside allies did for Judge Amy Coney Barrett's Seventh Circuit hearing on steroids. And if you thought that Kavanaugh's confirmation was ugly, just wait. This one is going to make Kavanaugh's look like a walk in the park. They are already starting it. They started it back during the Seventh Circuit hearing when she was up 3 years ago. She is a brilliant jurist. She graduated #1 in her class from Notre Dame Law School. She was the executive editor of the Law Review. She was she's still a law professor, but at that time she was a law professor for 15 years at Notre Dame Law School, 18 years now. She is widely respected by all of her colleagues, all of her students. We've gotten the letters in the committee when I was there. They're pouring in now. She is she clerked for the late, great Justice Scalia. She is right out of central casting. Even the American Bar Association, the liberal ABA, had no choice last time but to rate her as well qualified to serve on the Seventh Circuit because they would have just blown themselves up as an organization if they ruled any other way or if they rated her any other way. That is supposedly, the Democrats claim that these well-qualified ratings from the liberal ABA is their gold standard, but they don't actually mean it. And this time, what we saw last time is we saw Senator Dianne Feinstein, and I was the staff leader for this hearing. It was stunning. Senator Dianne Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee questioned Judge Barrett about her Catholic faith and said that the, quote, dogma lives loudly within you, and that is of concern to her, to Senator Feinstein. You had Senator Dick Durbin, the #2 Democrat in the Senate, asking Judge Barrett if she was an Orthodox Catholic, whatever the heck that means. We had Senator Kamala Harris, now vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris, and Senator Mazie Hirono attacking Judge Busher from Nebraska, another Catholic nominee to go through the process because of his involvement with the Knights of Columbus, which is a Catholic men's charity organization. So Antifa is okay for the Democrats, but Knights of Columbus is bad. And they question him about his membership in this. It's just, with the Democrats, you're seeing anti-Catholic dog whistling at best, and all-out anti-Catholic bigotry more realistically. And what I think that most Democrats have learned from last time is that backfired spectacularly. They actually turned Judge Barrett into a star by doing what they did. I think most senators have learned their lesson, and they're not going to be so explicit with their bigotry. They're going to do more dog whistling and rely on their outside groups to do their anti-Catholic bigotry and dirty work for them. But Mazie Hirono, who I consider the dumbest person ever to serve in the Senate, just tripled down today and said that it was fair game for senators to grill Judge Amy Coney Barrett about her Catholic faith. And that is outrageous. Anyone who understands the Constitution, Article 6 of the Constitution says there is no religious test for public office. And Senator Hirono is violating her constitutional oath by asking Judge Barrett about her Catholic faith.
Yeah, it's really despicable. You know, I don't know how else to say it, Mike. When I think about Feinstein going and Durbin, they were trying to veil their bigotry. They were trying to cover it at least a little bit. But for Hirono to say that, we're going to be able to go forward, let's test her on her faith, that's absurd. And it's not just absurd, it is unconstitutional, as you say. And quite frankly, it's a willful violation of your oath of office. And those are the reasons that people should be impeached. I'm sorry, that's just really an impeachable offense. But tell us about the outside groups, what you've seen in the past, what you anticipate for Amy Coney Barrett. And then I also want to ask you, I don't want to change it too much, don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but some people have asked me, why did Senator McConnell wait to start these hearings till October 12th, as opposed to, say, as early as next Monday? And you having gone through the process, you can answer that better than I can.
Well, I think Senator McConnell is handling this process perfectly. He has to thread the needle here to have a legitimate process, which he's absolutely having. He's following historical precedent. He's following the norms, and we're no doubt going to have a Justice Amy Coney Barrett on the bench by the end of October. And so there is no concern from Article 3 project's perspective. I was the staff leader on the Senate Judiciary Committee for nominations, and I understand that there are a lot of steps you have to jump through, and you can't just go right to a confirmation vote. This is a lifetime appointment. And what we don't want to do, the Democrats are already talking about this. They let this Eli Mistel, who is a left-wing radical, was just on a conference call, a Zoom call or a podcast yesterday with Brian Fallon, a former Clinton, Obama, Chuck Schumer aide who runs a liberal dark money group called Demand Justice. And they are unhinged, and they were unhinged for the Kavanaugh fight. They're going to be unhinged this time. They let the cat out of the bag. Their plan is to argue that this process is unfair, that it's tainted, and therefore that after the election, if Biden wins and Democrats win the Senate, they want to nuke the legislative filibuster, which means lower the vote threshold from 60 to 51 votes, make DC a state, let Puerto Rico become a state. So you have four more Democrat senators, and they want to do something that is so radical that the late Justice Ginsburg made the unusual step of coming out and publicly denouncing, and that is court packing. They want to expand the number of seats on the Supreme Court from 9 to 11 or more. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is in the Democrats' 2020 DNC platform, and they use court restructuring in their platform, but that is swamp speak for court packing. And you saw Joe Biden just yesterday saying that the platform is his. He wrote it. It is his platform. He owns it. This is his platform. He owns court packing. He refused to answer the question at the debate whether he was for or against court packing, because you know darn well he's for court packing. They are going to add liberal activist judges on the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court is going to go from a conservative majority to a liberal majority, and they're going to come after all of us. They're going to come after our free speech rights for conservatives. They're going to come after our worshiping rights as Christians and other believers, and they're going to come after our guns. So this election is critically important because the Democrats are very open and adamant about their radical schemes to pack the Supreme Court. Court packing we have not changed the number of justices on the Supreme Court since 1869. More than 150 years ago, right after the Civil War, FDR tried this during the Great Depression, and even he failed. It is a radical scheme, as the late Justice Ginsburg recently came out and said, and we cannot let this happen.
No, it is really radical. It's one of those things that you would actually see probably, regrettably, probably some violence in the streets over that, because it is so incredibly radical to try to overturn what is basically gone through the constitutional Republican process, and I mean little r Republican process, to get to appointing justices. There's nothing unusual about it, except for I think Justice Ginsburg was trying to hang on until there was a transition of power. I think that's where she wanted to be. It didn't work out, and but some of the things that seem so petty are also very big in this, and I don't know how they're going to be able to argue that this was tainted and unfair when people like Chuck Schumer and others of the Democrats have said, well, we're not even going to meet with her because they say this is inappropriate. It's inappropriate. Yeah. So the president was elected for 4 years. His term's still going. The senators were elected. Their terms are still going. They're still in session, and it's appropriate for them to be in session. For them to claim it's illegitimate and then to cause the illegitimacy or the appearance of illegitimacy by refusing to meet with Amy Coney Barrett, I think that shows how right you are that they're willing to really try to grind this thing down and spoil it if they can. Yeah,
I mean, I would say a couple of things. To your point about violence in the streets, there's certainly no advocacy for violence on our side of the aisle.
No,
everyone knows
absolutely
that.
Right.
I mean, that is we see these from the woke mobs, woke-Qaeda, as they call them. There is already violence in the streets, and they're continuing to threaten violence. The second point about what you're saying about Chuck Schumer saying this is legitimate to give Democrats fuel to pass their radical court packing plan. That is why it's so important that we check all the boxes so they can't come back and say that we jammed Judge Barrett through the process, because we're not. We are following historical norms. She just submitted her Senate Judiciary Questionnaire, which is the standard practice for Supreme Court nominees. She's doing the meetings with senators who wish to meet with her. She's gonna have the hearing. She's going to be at the hearing for 3 days, like prior Supreme Court nominees. There's going to be a fourth day. I call it the Star Wars bar. We have all the outside witnesses come in and, complain that the sky is falling, and they're going to be backroom abortions and people are going to die. And, the same things that Democrats have been doing for the last, 47 years since Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973. There's going to be the written questions for the record after the hearing, where the nominee has to respond to the written questions from senators. After the Kavanaugh hearing, the Democrats launched 1,287 written questions for the record to Kavanaugh after his 3 days of questioning at the Senate Judiciary Committee, clearly just to be obstructionist. That was more, they submitted more questions for the record than all prior Supreme Court nominees combined. And
Wow.
so we're going to be ready for that. Judge Barrett has a good team with her at the White House, at the Justice Department, with her own outside team supporting her. They're going to be ready for that. Then you have a committee meeting where you discuss the nominee, and then you have a meeting a week later. The discussion meeting is probably going to be around the 15th of October. The vote, the committee vote is going to be around October 22nd, and you're going to have her confirmed by October 28th, 29th, somewhere in there. And it's going to follow all the historical norms, checking every box. What it won't do, all these Democrats who clearly, every single one of these 47 Democrats are going to oppose Judge Barrett's nomination, no question. Chuck Schumer is not going to let these, so-called moderate Democrats cross the party lines on this. But what this won't do is it won't let the Democrats go out and work with creeps like Michael Avenatti and concoct serial gang rape allegations against a Supreme Court nominee. They're going to have, they're just going to have to stick to the record. Judge Barrett was thoroughly reviewed by the FBI, by the Senate, by the White House 3 years ago when we put her on the Seventh Circuit. It's a very quick update for the FBI and for the senators to go look at her, 100 opinions that she's written on the bench. I don't think there's going to be much for the FBI to look at with a mother of seven, a working mother of seven, who is a full-time federal appellate judge and a part-time Notre Dame law professor.
Yeah, I mean, we get back to Amy Coney Barrett. You wrote a title of a piece for your group, the Article 3 Project. Trump could not have picked a better Supreme Court nominee than Judge Amy Coney Barrett. I agree with you. I think she's remarkable. I think what we will see is the personal attacks that are based on bigotry. They've already begun attacking her family. That's not going to go over well with the American public. Somehow saying that because she and her husband adopted two Haitian children, to say that is somehow white colonialism is just not going to fly, even in today's radicalized world. It just won't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And the last thing they have, so they're going Catholic, they're anti-Catholic, they show their bigotry, they're exhibiting critical race theory, which is where you get this notion of white colonialism. And then you move into the last thing was like Bill Maher's comment, which is the dregs of all the arguments, and that's just to come out and call her names. And that's despicable conduct. But in the end, I was talking to someone else who's gone through the process and as a nominee, and they in a podcast the other day, and they said that they had been told at the beginning, this will be hell for about however long, but when it's done, you'll be confirmed. And I think that's the case. And so, Godspeed to Amy Coney Barrett and her family for sure, because she's going to go through hell before she's confirmed.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett is everything the left hates. She is a conservative, pro-life, working mother of seven, 5 kids of her own, 1 with Down syndrome, 2 kids adopted from Haiti. Like you said, the left-wing lunatics are saying that Judge Barrett and her husband are somehow racist because they adopted 2 Haitian kids. That is so disgusting, and it's the type of garbage. It's even worse than the Kavanaugh garbage because they attacked an adult there. It was totally the allegations against Kavanaugh were completely bogus, all of them, completely bogus. But he's an adult, right? When you're going after someone's kids like this, like you're sinking to the lowest of lowest depths. And these suburban women who Democrats think they're going to win are going to respond ferociously to attacks on children like this, like we're seeing with leading Democrat campaign operatives doing this.
Yeah.
And where is Joe Biden? Where is Kamala Harris? Where is Chuck Schumer? Where is Dianne Feinstein? Why aren't they condemning these attacks? Why isn't the so-called mainstream, and when I say mainstream, I mean liberal media, asking Joe Biden? Why don't they, go to his basement before his 10 a.m. lid and ask him, does he condone these attacks? Does he condone these personal attacks on Judge Amy Coney Barrett's 7 children?
Yeah, no, it's despicable. I said the other day when I was being interviewed by somebody, I said, it's really inhumane, actually. It is the dregs of humanity that would stand up and say that attack this lady's family because they found it in their heart for her and her family to bring in these children. It's absolutely ridiculous. But there we are in 2020.
Yeah.
And who would have thought, Mike, that when we started the year with the impeachment of President Trump, that we'd be getting close to closing it out before the election even of the president and Congress and the local races this time. Who would have thought that we would be subjected to another brutal Supreme Court justice process? I mean, I'm grateful for Amy Coney Barrett for just having the courage of her convictions to go forward with it, because it's a brutal process.
Well, I will say this is one of the main reasons I started the Article 3 project when I think I broke every piece of china in the Senate last Congress. So it was time for me to move on when Chairman Grassley went over to the Finance Committee, and I started the Article 3 project for this very moment, because I saw firsthand, up close and personally, how vicious the Democrats and their outside groups, their abortion industry funded groups are. They will sink to the lowest depths to protect the abortion industry, to protect their radicalism, and they are going to be unhinged. Even more so, these woke mobs you see on the streets are going to be trying to get into the halls of the Senate during this confirmation. And we need fighters. We need people who are willing to punch back against this nonsense. And I've always found that DC is the only place on the planet where the reptiles lack backbones. And so we need to find our backbones in DC. We need people like Congressman Biggs everywhere, people who are fighters, people. If we can get you House Judiciary Committee members and Freedom Caucus members to jump into this fight, that would be. It's great that you guys are doing this, because you know what, you can help a lot of people in this town find their backbones.
Well, we're hoping so, and you're doing the same, and I wish you Godspeed. Thanks for taking a few moments. Give me your website again so people can get to it.
Yeah, thank you. It's article3project.org, article3project.org, and we're also on Twitter, Article3Project on Twitter.
Great, great. And, Godspeed to you, Mike, and we'll have to talk again as you work through this once we get to the other side of this, a very important Supreme Court confirmation process. I'm like you. I know Amy Coney Barrett's going to be confirmed, and I just hope that the American people realize how great she is and how bad they are who are opposing this for the reasons that they're opposing it.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for having me.